Welcome, everybody. I'm Alfred Lambermont Weber on the World Good News Network, and we're here with Professor Dr. Raymond Keller. And it's a great pleasure to welcome you, Raymond, for an interview. And we'll be discussing a specific topic, and that is that of Nibiru and the supposed second sun that our solar system might have, Nemesis. And you've written a number of books on this that touch on this subject. You were just showing me some copies of those specific of the 11 books that you've written. Perhaps you could show them.
Oh, sure. Thank you,
Yeah,
Alfred. Much
yeah,
appreciated. This is the
yeah.
very first one. This is Venus Rising, a concise history of the second planet, and
Oh,
it's already sold out and it's going into its fourth edition. It's
amazing.
beautifully produced with color insets
Oh,
and hundreds of
amazing.
pictures. Well worth the price. The second book in the series is the one that deals with information from the Dogon peoples about the Sirius star sector and also overlapping material about Nibiru. This is the final countdown rockets to Venus. So we'll be
Amazing.
discussing that today.
Yeah.
And my most recent book is The Real Resident Aliens. So based on the television show with John Tudyk of the same name, Resident Alien, but this is the real stuff, going all the way back to the late 40s to the present time, with the extraterrestrials living and working among us.
Very good. Very good. Now, you mentioned a very interesting word or entities, and that is the Dogon, because that's the Dogon tribe in Western Africa, is it?
Yes, that's correct. In the Red Cliffs region of Mali in West Africa.
Yeah. Now, as it turns out, I actually traveled through Mali and was on my way to visit the Dogon when I essentially ran out of time to get up to the Dogon. But I'm going to turn it over to you so that you can explain how the Dogon intersect with the subject of Nibiru. So over to you.
Okay, I'll be very happy to do that and going to share that information. And okay, that should be popping up now. And we're going to go to slideshow and from the current slide. Okay, is that showing up? Hello?
Sorry about that. I put myself on mute. That
Oh,
is showing up just fine.
oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, this is my friend, Dr. Kiva Falmakete. Um, he's filled in for me and doing presentations at various events and conferences. We went through a doctoral program together in uh, in history at West Virginia University, and then also in the foreign languages. Um, and So he's a very good friend with some reliable information. Uh, he is from the eastern part of Senegal, bordering on Mali, in that Red Cliffs region that we were that we were talking about. So this is where this information is coming from. So generally, when we think of the Sirius star sector, we think of Sirius, which is the brightest star uh, in the sky, very high magnitude uh, star, and it's actually a double star. And then on the um, near vicinity of Sirius A and Sirius B is a recently discovered Sirius C that the Dogons also knew about, and we're going to explore that information here. Okay, this is a picture of Kiva, my friend, and he's been a strong asset to me at West Virginia University. We help each other co-teach different classes together, and as team teaching, as they would call that. So he's a world traveler and he speaks 7 different languages. He just recently completed also a master's degree program at Conflict Resolution and Coexistence Studies at Brandeis University in Massachusetts. So before we begin any lecture or any talk about things extraterrestrial and controversial subjects, I always like to keep in mind that as cosmic citizens, we're here to form a nucleus of universal brotherhood for humankind without distinction of race, creed, sex, caste, or color. We're here to encourage the study of comparative religion, philosophy, and science. And we are here to investigate the unexplained laws of nature and the powers latent in humankind. And no matter where that leads us, onward and upward to knowledge and adventure. So mankind's oldest dream is to answer the question, are we alone in the universe? The world space agencies search for life beyond the Earth. But what if they don't have to look beyond their own cosmic backyard where the flying saucers have landed? And hopefully my presentation will provide some amazing answers to this profound question. Today, uh, based on Kiva's knowledge as a shaman or Hogan, I'm going to tell you something about one tribal branch in the African family tree, the Dogon of West Africa, particularly about what the Dogon know about intelligent life in outer space, and particularly in the Sirius star system. So here you see on the left, these are traditional Dogon costumes that extend back in history 7,000 years for the arrival of spacemen in ancient West Africa, and these traditions that carry over to this day. And I think everybody will find these to be very interesting. So this is the homeland of the Dogon people. It's in Mali, a landlocked country in West Africa that borders on the countries of Algeria, Mauritania, Senegal, Guinea, Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, and Niger. The Dogon peoples are also scattered throughout these border countries. The most sacred of Dogon lands are situated in the Red Cliffs region of Mali, Bandiagara, and Donetsk, circled in red on the map to the right. In 1995, I had the unique opportunity of being in Timbuktu, an ancient city of knowledge that goes back to 1,500 years. There's actually a university there and many ancient documents, including information from the Dogons and other people along the northern Saharan caravan routes with esoteric knowledge from all these different peoples, including the Egyptians, about the Sirius star system and other star systems. This is Sankore Mosque in Timbuktu, and it continues to attract scholars from around the world. Timbuktu is an Islamic city whose three large mosques, where the study of the Quran formed the bedrock of a learning tradition, with its scholars composing, copying, and importing many works on varied subjects, including math, law, geometry, history, and especially astronomy. So the star revelations that we're going to discuss are found in my second book in the Venus Rising series in chapter 6. The Final Countdown, Rockets to Venus is the title of the book. And that it also includes information from the Venusians themselves, as well as other extraterrestrial groups. It's interesting that all the way back in 1954, in April of 1954, at the first interplanetary spacecraft convention in Giant Rock at Landers, California, George Van Tassel revealed that there's a galactic confederation of light consists of 602 planetary members from 51 different solar systems. And this would also include um, the current residents and occupants of the Sirius star system and the planets there. So we're going to go over what some of those planets are and what's really going on up there. So an early Dogon revelation is that Sirius A has an invisible companion, Sirius B, a small white dwarf star. So the Dogon religion reveals that the Dogon tribe was visited by aliens from the Sirius star group some 5,000 years ago. And these aliens were from a largely water world that bestowed their knowledge of their home planet on the Dogon. The Dogon called these aliens the Nomos, from whom they gained an extensive knowledge of the Sirius star system before the outside world had had a chance to give them this information. In other words, the Dogon tribe would not only need the astronomical knowledge, but also a telescope in order for them to have acquired such information that they already acquired from the Nomos thousands of years ago. So the Dogon understand that Sirius is a multiple star system, triple star system with dozens of planets and hundreds of moons, spanning 25 astronomical units. And an AU or astronomical unit equals 93 million miles, or the distance that's covered from the Earth to the Sun. Now, Sirius B is a star that is invisible to the naked eye, and according to anthropologists who visited the Dogon in the 1930s, the tribe was aware of the existence of this star, which they called Potolo. Potolo. Furthermore, they knew every detail of Potolo, that it's a white dwarf star, that the length of its orbit in years, the shape of its orbit, and the fact that it is quite dense. The Dogon also say there is another star in the system called Emeya, which astronomers are now looking for. And they have found it. It's very hard to see optically because it's a brown dwarf star. In other words, it generates its own heat, but it's like a supermassive Jupiter. And at right, Sirius B is so close to Sirius A that it could only be seen with the aid of a high-powered telescope, such as the one at Mount Palomar in California. Possible Sirius C, a very faint brown dwarf star. You can barely make it out in the southeastern quadrant of this photo. It's just um, that dim. It doesn't have much of a magnitude. So Sirius B existence was confirmed by modern astronomers. Sirius A, or Sigitolo, is the brightest star in the constellation of Canis Major, or the Great Dog. Sirius A has come to be known down through the ages as the Dog Star. An astronomer from Northwestern University's observatory in Evanston, Illinois, Dr. Alvin G. Clark, confirmed the existence of Sirius B, or what the Dogons refer to as Potolo, on the 31st of January in 1862, which he euphemistically dubbed the puppy. So there's some amazing astronomical knowledge of the Dogon. In 1950, the French anthropologist Dr. Marcel Grau published a study of the Dogon tribe of Mali in West Africa, in which he described an elaborate Dogon ceremony centered around the star of Sirius. The Dogon informed Griale through sand paintings that Sirius was accompanied by a very heavy companion star, Sirius B, in a highly elliptical orbit, circling Sirius A every 50 years, but that it was completely invisible to the naked eye, and that this information was revealed to their people 5,000 years ago when they were first visited by quote and unquote sky gods from a world in the Sirius system. So, according to the anthropologist Marcel Grial, the Dogon people depicted the orbit of the invisible Sirius B star in their sand pictures on the right. There is a Sirius B orbit in different decades of the 20th century as contemporary astronomers estimate. So you could see it's not far off from the Dogon depiction of it. Now, the existence of Sirius C, or the supermassive Jupiter, um, like a protostar, a planet that's in the process of becoming a star, a big gas giant. So at Sankore in Timbuktu, it was revealed that the Dogon also had knowledge of a third star in the Sirius sector, a brown dwarf that orbits both Sirius A and B at an elliptical orbit of some 25 astronomical units out from Sirius A at its greatest extent. So that's about, in our solar system, that would equate to about the distance of Saturn from the sun. An astronomical unit is 93 million miles, the same as the distance from the Earth to the sun. And at its point farthest away from Sirius A, it would be 2,325 million miles out. The nature of brown dwarf stars. So brown dwarfs are also called failed or protostars. These are substellar objects that are not massive enough to sustain nuclear fusion of ordinary hydrogen into helium at their cores. And unlike main sequence stars, instead they have a mass between the most massive gas giant planets and the least massive stars, approximately 13 to 80 times that of Jupiter. However, they can fuse deuterium, and the most massive ones at 65 times the mass of Jupiter can even fuse lithium. Those through accretion attaining to a mass greater than 80 times the mass of Jupiter can flare up into low mass stars. So here you see a brown dwarf in the middle, Jupiter, and then you have the like a low mass star, protostar, and then the sun as examples. So modern astronomers search for Sirius C. In 1995 and 2008, French astronomers published reports on their recent observations summarized as follows. Apart from Sirius B, no other sources detected within the 25 AU field. However, using the perturbations of Sirius A and B and theoretical spectra of brown dwarfs and planet-sized objects, We also show the end of the brown dwarf sequence is reached in the outer part of the image. A minimal detectable mass of 10 times the size of Jupiter is projected at a distance of 25 astronomical units, or about 2,500,000 miles from Sirius A. What we know about Sirius A from the galactics. So they call it Sothis. Sothis. It is 10 times larger than our sun, twice as massive, and registers 20 times as much luminescence. It is the largest, most brilliant star in our hemisphere and is known as a blue-white star. Venus is actually brighter, but Venus, of course, is a planet. Sirius A is 8.7 light years from the Earth and moving on a direct course toward our solar system. So, moving at 186,000 miles per second, the light from that star takes 8.7 years to reach the Earth. It is located in the jaws of the Great Dog or Canis Major constellation, and hence is known as the Dog Star. It is visible in the northern hemisphere of our evening sky from November through April, so it can still be seen by following a direct line through the belt of Orion, the three stars in the belt of Orion, toward the horizon. It has two companion stars and collectively exhibits enormous gravitational fields. So if you go out there on a clear night, you should be able to see Sirius A with the naked eye. Now, Sirius B is called Cetice or Potolo. It's a white dwarf star with the equivalent mass of our sun packed into a globe just 4 times the size of Earth. It travels in an elliptical orbit around Sirius A, which it completes in a 50-year cycle. Although it was only discovered by the scientific community a mere 50 years ago, the Dogon tribe knew of Sirius B, which they described as a heavy, small, powerful star, as early as 5,000 years ago. Okay, led by the Reverend Clayton Parker, then 87, an early disciple of the Mormon mystic Annalise Guerin, the Salt Lake City chapter of OSIRIS, Outer Space International Research and Investigation Society, made a trip to Mount Shasta in 1987, where its members encountered Lady Ankara, a Venusian emissary beaming in from a colony in the Sirius star sector. This is a UFO photographed over the northern ridge of Mount Shasta in Northern California. And this is the ascended Annalise Guerin, now known as Lady Ankara of, of, uh, of Venus, who directs a colony in the Sirius star sector. So there were 8 of us there that day. And all the information in that encounter is described in my first book, which is Venus Rising. This is a flying saucer camouflage in a cloud over the city of Mount Shasta and photographed by the Forest Service employee right before Rob Potter's From Venus with Love conference in 2019, as reported on Fox News. When I was out there with Reverend Parker in 1987, we met with Sister Thedra at her home and offices and studios there in Mount Shasta, and she presented us with a beautiful book with all of these camouflage clouds, which were concealing motherships and various kind of etheric star vessels that were materializing over Mount Shasta. So Lady Ankara provided illumination from the Sirius star sector. She said that there were inhabitants from there were colonists in the Sirius star sector from many of the planets of the Confederation, all living in peace and harmony with one another, and that one day, when the Earth becomes the 602nd planetary member, that we'll be invited to send colonists to live over there as well. This is Annalise Guerin, grew up LDS in Idaho, and uh, before she was bodily translated into the heavens from Mount Shasta. She's known as Lady Ankara, a Venusian mothership commander and ascended master, organizing the colonization of Balaton, a super Earth planet in the Sirius star system. It's about 3 times the size of Earth, so it's a super Earth, and it's about 2/3 um, mountainous, and the water is all fresh water there. It's very similar in the appearance to the, the Mount Shasta area. I think that's why there's so many Ethereans that visit that uh, special magic mountain. So the Galactic Confederation of Light High Council, the Akashic records tell us that while Sirius A is still a third dimensional stellar presence, what we observe as the dwarf star, or Sirius B, is actually the remains of an ascended star, which has traveled through its own astral cords and now exists in the sixth or angelic dimension. It is here that members of the Galactic High Council reside in light bodies, and from here that they are directing their overarching enemies to the awakening of all those residing in the 601 planets of 51 solar systems that comprise the Galactic Confederation. Balaton is a super Earth planet in orbit around Sirius B, and Sirius B is the small but heavy white dwarf star that itself orbits the larger Sirius A. And the artist's conception of what a super Earth in another solar system will look like. The mantis and the bee work together. The mantis is the highest form of indigenous life on the planet Balaton. The mantids are from 5 to 15 feet long on Balaton and allied with the honeybee, some 5 to 8 feet long on Venus in the galactic hierarchy. The natural enemies of the mantis and honeybee are certain species of the ant and wasp. These are the predators that rob and devour their eggs. It is therefore natural that the mantis and the honeybee partner to advance their mutual survival and other interests throughout the galaxy. While we were at Mount Shasta, Lady Ankara told us to look up at the side of the mountain and tell us what we saw. And we looked and we beheld these mantids, very large mantids, about 5 to 15 feet in length, that were moving up and down the ridge on the mountain there, right above the tree line. And so she said that the reason why we could see them is because we were standing in some kind of like a hyperdimensional vortex, that we were simultaneously on Mount Shasta and the planet Balaton at the same time. Many cultures in the ancient world equated Sirius as the gateway to the realm of the gods. The mantids are the guardians of the Sirius Stargate, opening and closing it at the behest of other galactics. The Venusians and other galactics has established human colonies in this star sector. And the female of humanoids species can communicate with the mantids by placing their left hand on the head of these these large insects, and they can telepathically um, communicate with the mantids and obtain information about any of the planets within the network of the stargates. This is an Egyptian text from the Book of the Dead explaining the Sirius star connectivity of all inhabited galactic solar systems. Note the mantid entity at the center of the portal controlling the access in the circular diagram. I offer a detailed explanation of this in my first book, Venus Rising, A Concise History of the Second Planet, and the relationship of Sirius to the Earth. And Lady Ankara also confirmed the existence of Sirius B. In a visit in 2012, she confirmed the Dogon information, albeit giving other names for the stars and planets in the Sirius star sector other than the ones that the Dogons gave. Yes, cosmic ray, it certainly does exist, Sirius C, just as your compatriot described it. In the Sirius star sector, the main sequence star Sirius A is known as Sothis, while the white dwarf Sirius B is called Cetus. The other dwarf star Sirius C is Anu. Anu's dimness has prevented your astronomers from so far observing it, at least with conventional telescopes. Of course, that is not to say they haven't tried to find it. So Annalise Guerin, shown here, before becoming a translated being known as Lady Ankara, that followed her translation and ascension from Mount Shasta in Northern California. She also wrote 9 books about spiritual subjects that are available. I think they're available now. You could even read them for free online. Just type in books of Annalise Guerin, and you could Google it or DuckDuckGo it and get the information. Okay, now from the galactics, what we learn about Sirius C and Anu, and here's begins the connection with Nibiru. So this is very important. Although the scientific community has not confirmed the existence of Sirius C, the Dogon knew it by the name of Ya, and they also described it as revolving around Sirius A, but much further out than Sirius B. Aeons ago, during the time of the Sirian shift, one of the planets that orbit Anu broke away as a rogue body and for millions of years drifted through space. That planet is Nibiru, the home world of the Anunnaki. At right is a depiction of the arrival of the planet Nibiru and the Anunnaki gods in our solar system 12,500 years ago. Artist depiction. So Nibiru would be the as yet unknown planet. About 12,500 years ago, Nibiru was captured by our sun's gravitational pull when it reached the edge of our solar system. So it's literally hundreds of AUs out there. It now occupies a highly elliptical orbit that takes approximately 15,000 years to complete one revolution around the sun. Some refer to Nibiru, a Neptune-sized body, as the mysterious planet X, although technically it would be considered the 12th planet in our solar system if you still count Pluto as a planet. And I count Pluto as a planet because it has 5 moons and it has an atmosphere. And why wouldn't it be a planet? The last time any planet crossed the Earth's orbital path was 3,600 years ago. It was Nibiru. If it was Nibiru, then we are safe for another 8,800 years. The Old Testament of the Bible is replete with numerous disasters that befell the earth 3,600 years ago, during the time of Moses and Joshua. Many of these calamities are highlighted in Immanuel Velikovsky's book, Worlds in Collision, New York Macmillan Publishers in 1950. He speculated that perhaps the planet in question was Venus, but now we're beginning to know a lot more about uh, our solar system in the earliest times. Now that we've sent space probes out to the furthest of the outer planets, and even to Pluto, so we know that it had to be a foreign body that we haven't fully detected yet. So will we be ready for Nibiru's actual arrival? In the January 2016 issue um, of Science magazine, Caltech scientists in Pasadena, California, Mike Brown and Konstantin Batygin, published their calculations predicting the existence of a trans-Neptunian planet Nibiru. They said that this planet, trans-Neptunian object, Nibiru, has the most extreme elliptical orbit of all the planets, extending beyond the Kuiper belt, taking 15,000 years to complete one ellipse. Because of its irregular orbit not on the plane of the ecliptic, we wouldn't know it was near the Earth until it was literally right over us. So it wouldn't be easy to spot anywhere on the Earth except if you were in the polar regions. Okay. Here's the two Caltech astronomers. They say that the planet does exist, and they've proved it through the calculation based on perturbations in the orbit of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, and as well as other trans-Neptunian objects in the Kuiper belt. And it is currently believed to be on the very fringes of our solar system, just beyond the Kuiper belt. Now, according to the information from the Dogons, Anome Ya is the name of the home world of the Nomos that orbits around Sirius C or Emea. During the time of the Sirian shift, all the moons of the former massive Jupiter-like planet were themselves elevated to the status of planets in orbit around the newly born brown dwarf protostar Anu, or Sirius C. One of these new planets was Ennomeia, a predominantly water world about the size of Mars and the home of the Nomos, the beings who would later visit the Dogon in West Africa. Shades of Stargate. Clues of the Nomos' arrival on Earth can be found in the archives of the ancient Egyptians and tribal traditions of the Dogon. So what we know about the Nomos: they inhabit the Mars-sized water-rich planet Ennomeia in orbit around Sirius C, or Emea Anu. After they landed on Earth 5,000 years ago in Egypt and central West Africa, they were mistaken for sky gods. The pharaohs, kings, and priests and priestesses of the Hogons and the Egyptians are literal hybridized descendants of the Nomos who continue to maintain a psychic link to the descendants of their ancestors on the planet Ennomeia. Ennomeia is the founding planet in the Galactic Confederation of Light, along with Abahar or Venus. Ennomeia is a planet in the fourth dimension, like Venus, whose inhabitants master time, space, and gravity. Some other advanced ETs. Here's a galactic colonist in the Sirius star sector, possibly a Pleiadian, pilot of an interdimensional craft. And then here's a Venusian friend with me out in Landers, California. Giant rock. So this coming summer, I will be uh, appearing with Omnek Onek, the ambassador from Venus, at the summer conference in Mount Shasta. And that's Rob Potter's phone number there at the bottom. So you could call if you want to get a ticket and go there. And we look forward to seeing you. 530-925-3502. 530-925-3502. Just tell them Cosmic Ray gave you the number. Okay. And so this year's Mount Shasta conference will explore many of the connections between celestial realms and aliens. The late Reverend Dr. Frankie Strange's 1927 to 2008, who introduced the Venusian Victor 1 Starship Commander Valiant Thor to the world, declared that friendly aliens are indistinguishable from aliens and angels, as also did Billy Graham, the Reverend Billy Graham. So let your brotherly love continue. Do not forget hospitality, for through it some have entertained angels unawares. That was the Apostle Paul's admonition to the Hebrews in the book of Hebrews, chapter 13, verse 2. They live among us today. Blessings are extended to you from the Dogon of Earth and our brothers and sisters of Nomo and the Galactic Confederation. And this presentation is dedicated to world peace. Thank you for your kind attention.
Very, very interesting. Now, I have one specific question, and it's this. Um, now, the specific term, and it may be some confusion in my mind, had come up with a specific number of years, 1,500 years. Where did that specific number of years come up as being the possible next close passage of Nibiru to Earth? Because I didn't see it in that presentation. I saw 15,000.
Yeah, 15,000 would be
Yeah,
the, yeah, 15,000. Although um, we have to be very careful because there are many what they call NEOs, NEOs, near Earth objects. There's a lot of stuff that's in the Kuiper Belt that we have no idea, and also lurking in our own asteroid belt as well, between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter. So there's a lot of things that we just don't know. And if it is on a very highly elliptical orbit and not on the plane of the ecliptic, we literally won't know if it's here until it's right on top of us. So we definitely have to be we definitely have to be alert. And now that we have the science and technology, we should be coming together as a planet to defend our planet against um, the intrusion of these rogue bodies in space.
right. Now, there are a number of well, one astronomer and another person who spent 30 years in jail and then has continued publishing his books, who claim that Nibiru is on an elliptical orbit and will pass in 2046 AD, which is 21 years from 2025. What do you think that they may be tracking?
Well, it's very possible that they're tracking something, but it's probably not planet size, because
I see.
if it was planetary in size, we would detect shifts and perturbations in the orbits of the other planets. But there have been um, there have been large asteroids and even um, what appeared to be there was one named after a Hawaiian like a Hawaiian deity that was it was a it at first they thought it was some kind of I think it's Onuname or something. It was uh, they thought it was an asteroid, but it actually changed its orbital path, like it was under intelligent control. So there's all kinds of objects out there that we need to be watching that we don't know what they
Right,
are.
right.
And
Well,
then also it would be very hard to detect such objects if they were near the sun, very near to the sun, or even on the other side of the sun. Like for example, Mercury, the planet closest to the sun, um, even though it would be visible as a morning star, but it's so close to the sun that the light from it is always drowned it out. But there's probably objects much bigger than Mercury that might be in closer proximity to the sun. Like ancient astronomers said there was a planet out there called Vulcan that was closer to the sun than Mercury, but we just can't see it. And there might be artificial space stations that are that are there close to the sun as well, or even hidden on the other side of the sun. And that would be the perfect place to for an extraterrestrials to put an outpost where they couldn't be detected by us.
hey, well, thank you very much for presenting this uh, joint presentation by yourself and by the astronomer and professor representative from the Dogon. Um, I remember that my goal when I was in Mali was to make it to Timbuktu, but I just simply ran out of time and energy there. I just couldn't make it there.
Well, hopefully you'll be able to go back there one of these days, and I hope many other ufologists and researchers of ancient astronaut theory and so forth will get out there, and because
Good, good.
there's a lot to be discovered in our amazing
Now,
universe. Omniverse.
now, yeah, now, as we spoke before the program, I have a second question to ask you, if that's okay. And that is that in January of 1977, when I joined Stanford Research Institute in Palo Alto, California, as a futurist, they then had a contract with the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency uh, uh, for a 50-year future study, a 50-year future alternative futures for the USA for 50 years. They do alternative futures for the 50 years of the USA. And the week that I joined, the director of the study of the center took me aside and said, Alfred, uh, in the future, the United States is going to break up into multiple regions. And he took me aside and told me that. And I suppose that was a leak, either from the CIA or from SRI's report to the CIA, because the CIA had time travel machines at that time, as I learned from whistleblowers, so that they could go 50 years into the future. And so my question to you is this: have you heard about this? Hey, have you heard about the fact that in the future, 50 years down, or some determine it down, the United States of America is going to break up into regions? So over to you.
Yes, Alfred, I have heard rumors like that, and I think that it's more likely now than it ever has been because we're becoming more factionalized. Um, I grew up in the 50s and 60s, and at that time there was more unity. We just had three major networks: ABC, NBC, and CBS. Then later on, well, PBS came around. But now people can tailor, with the internet and streaming, they can just tailor their news so that people live more and more in these media cocoons, and society is becoming more fragmented than it ever was. And I could see how this would be an impetus to push people apart rather than pull them together, because people today have less of a middle ground to stand on, less of a common ground. So I could definitely see that, and I've seen projections of very strange maps of not only the borders within the United States changing. For example, there's a movement in some states where conservative counties want to break away and join with neighboring states. And then there's also international movements to change the international borders. Of course, uh, Donald Trump was talking about Greenland and Canada and all that. But on a serious note, there's been talk, like in Alberta, of forming some kind of alliance with Montana and Saskatchewan, and breaking away to become an independent country in Quebec. And then in the American Southwest of Aztlan, of the more Spanish-speaking areas, maybe breaking away to be an independent country, or realigning with Mexico. So there's all these things that all these shifting alliances and these kind of subtle movements that are uh, we're seeing the beginnings of them. So it's something that really it really bothers me, because I always like when people come together, and 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 there's more cohesion and adhesion. And the best way is like all these, now you see all these tariffs and everything, and it's just pulling countries and people apart. It's the carrot brings that moves things, not the stick. The stick will just antagonize people, and the carrots are what brings people together. And appreciation of different cultures, but belief in principles of freedom and democracy and liberty, and these are the things that bring people together. So it's disturbing to me when I see all this stuff.
Yes, well, thank you so much for joining us for this interview and for bringing us so much fact and historically based and your deep research on the Nibiru and Sirius based historical research, and then your comments on the future, possible future of the U.S. How can people reach you said 11, and then books, and then a new book coming out. How can people access your work and access you?
Well, they're all available on Amazon because I have two publishers. Discus Publishing in Germany. Some is in German, and then in English with Headline Books, and in Terra Alta, West Virginia. But the best way would be to just get onto Amazon, and you could put my email on your website if you would
Excellent.
like.
Sure.
It's just rkeller1 at mix.wvu.edu. And I'll try to answer as many emails as I can.
Good. Yeah, we really and also we'd like to be able to stay in touch with you from time to time as as time goes on and these issues began to develop even more. So thank you very much then.
Oh, you're quite welcome, Alfred. And when Rob gets around uh, to it, we have that article, and I don't know if he sent it to you yet
No, no, he
about
hasn't. So good. So we have a follow-up interview that we can do with you and Rob around that forthcoming article.
yes, it's called Vanguard of California Ufology, 1972.
Excellent.
Rob and I were both friends with the late Gabriel Green of Amalgamated Flying Saucer Clubs of America, and there's a lot of exclusive, groundbreaking information in that article.
Excellent. Well, I look forward to being in touch with you and with Rob and to completing that interview and getting that information out. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you, sir. Much appreciated.
Good enough then. Until we meet again soon.
Yes.
Great.